Today, we're getting right into the heart of the Buddhist philosophy, and we're using Walpola Rahula's amazing book, What the Buddha Taught, as our guide. What we're really looking at is a practical science of the mind, one that was designed to tackle one of the biggest questions we've ever asked ourselves.
This is the very question that made a young prince, Siddhartha Gautama, walk away from his palace and search for an answer. And that answer? Well, it became the entire foundation of Buddhism. But before we can really get what he taught, we have to understand the man himself.
And this is absolutely crucial. The Buddha wasn't a god. He wasn't a divine messenger or some kind of prophet. He was a human being just like you and me. And he was really clear that his enlightenment came from human effort and human intelligence and nothing else. That idea, it changes everything.
So, for our first section, a teacher, not a god. Because the Buddha was a teacher and not some deity to be worshipped, the whole mindset he pushed for was one of free and critical thinking. You really have to get this part to understand everything that comes next.
He gave this incredible advice to a group of people called the Kalamas. And for its time, it was just, wow, so radical. He told them to question absolutely everything: tradition, holy books, even their own teachers, including him. The final test, he said, has to be your own experience. Know for yourselves what is good, then and only then accept and follow it.
I love this metaphor of the raft. It just perfectly sums up what he was getting at. His teachings are a tool, right? They're a raft you build to get from the shore of suffering to the shore of safety. But once you're across, you don't carry the raft around on your back. You leave it behind. It's a means to an end, not some dogma you have to cling to forever.
Okay, section 2, the truth of dissatisfaction. So, with that open-minded, critical attitude locked in, let's dive into the Buddha's diagnosis of what it means to be human. And it all starts with the first noble truth, the reality of something called dukkha.
Now, you'll often hear dukkha translated as just suffering, but that's a bit of a downer, and honestly, it doesn't really capture the whole picture. The meaning is so much deeper. Of course, it includes the pain and sadness we all know, but it's also pointing to this fundamental, underlying imperfection and instability in everything.
And here's the kicker. Even the happiest moments of your life are, in a way, a form of dukkha. Now wait, not because they're painful, but because they're temporary. They're going to change, they're going to end, and that simple fact contains the seed of dissatisfaction. And this isn't meant to be pessimistic. It's presented as a completely realistic way of looking at life. So, to really get dukkha, the Buddha basically took apart our idea of a self. He said that what we call I or me isn't some solid, permanent thing. It's actually just a combination of 5 processes that are always changing. You've got your physical body, your feelings, your perceptions, your thoughts and intentions, and your consciousness. There's no permanent you hiding somewhere behind these shifting parts. And that leads to this just massive conclusion. Dukkha isn't something that happens to you. The very collection of physical and mental parts that you think of as you is dukkha. Why? Because it's fundamentally impermanent and it's always in flux.
All right, section 3. The origin of craving. So, if dukkha is the diagnosis, the illness, then what's the cause? Well, the second noble truth points the finger at this incredibly powerful, relentless force that the Buddha called tanha.
Tanha literally means thirst or craving, and it's this deep, often selfish desire that is the engine driving us. It's the thirst for pleasant things, sights, sounds, tastes. It's the thirst to exist, to become something more, to keep going. And it's even the thirst to not exist, to just be gone. This craving is what powers all of our dissatisfaction.
And according to the Buddha's analysis, this one single force is the root cause of all the conflict in the entire world. I mean, think about it. From a small argument with your family all the way up to huge international wars, he says you can trace every single one back to this fundamental, selfish thirst for things to be different than they are.
Moving on to section 4, the path to freedom. So, we've got the diagnosis, dukkha, and we've got the cause, tanha. But, and this is so important, the Buddha's message is not about despair, not at all. He also gave us a prognosis and a prescription. The third noble truth says there is a cure, and the fourth tells us exactly how to get there.
So what's the cure? It's nirvana. But nirvana isn't some cloudy heaven you go to when you die. It is the complete and total extinguishing of that flame of thirst. It's the end of greed, the end of hatred, and the end of ignorance. It's an ultimate reality you can experience right here, in this life.
And here's the prescription for how to do it, the Noble Eightfold Path.
Now, what's so important to get here is that this isn't a list of steps you do in order 1 through 8. Nope. It's 8 interconnected practices that you have to develop all at the same time. And they're usually grouped into 3 main categories: ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom.
Okay, our final section, Section 5, the illusion of self. This whole path of training, this whole journey, it all leads to this one profound insight. And it sits at the absolute core of the Buddhist philosophy. It's probably his most radical, most challenging teaching, the idea of anatta, or no soul.
This is really what makes Buddhism stand out. Think about it. Pretty much every other major religion or philosophy suggests there's some kind of eternal soul or self, an unchanging essence that's the real you. Buddhism comes along and says, actually, that whole idea of a permanent, separate self, it's an illusion. It's a false belief our minds have created.
This quote from the great Buddhist scholar Buddhaghosa just nails it. There isn't some fixed person, a sufferer or a doer, standing behind all of our experiences. There's just the experience itself. There's the process of suffering, the process of doing. A thought exists, but there's no separate thinker having the thought. The thought itself is the thinker. It's a wild idea.
Now, it is so important to understand this. This teaching is not trying to annihilate you. The goal is to liberate you from a false idea, an idea that actually causes a ton of suffering. When you see that there's no fixed, permanent self that you have to constantly protect and gratify, that thirst that drives all the dukkha, it just runs out of fuel. And that leaves us with one final profound question to chew on. If the self is an illusion, then what does it truly mean to be you?